Good evening, gospel revolutionaries around the world. I think I'm having a bit of a lighting issue tonight, but hey, we've had issues every night, but we keep on going. Tonight we are going to go on into Galatians chapter 4. There's something that's really captivated my attention as I was reading through this just before I got ready to go live here. And so we're going to be talking about time. You know, people are running out of time. There's not enough time. People are looking for time. But time is something that God established. Time is something that God established by putting a sun, a moon, and stars, and a planet, and rotation, and orbits, and all of these things into position. It turned out that this creation of these things actually were to map out all the way up until the birth of Christ and the fulfillment of all time, the fulfillment of time, of why God really established time, as far as what I can tell. And we know that even with the birth of Christ, that the stars told us that. Now, there's people trying to find out things from the stars today. Not impressed. But I think the stars did tell us something. Time told us something. And we're ignoring what the scriptures in relationship to time has told us. Now, I can see that we've got, we do have an issue here. Hold on, I don't know what it is, but we are going to try to remedy what the problem is. And I honestly don't know what it is. I can see what's happening. So anyway, I'm going to hold the camera. That's what I'm going to do, is we'll just hold this thing here. Now, when we get into Galatians chapter 5 here, one of the things that I wanted to get into is just we start out where we left off, and it says, and if you be Christ, then are you Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. The verse before that in Galatians chapter 3 says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ. Now, everybody being one in Christ, that's an impressive thing. That's really something that we need to take note of. If you're in Christ, you're one with everybody. If you're in Christ, you're one with God. If you're in Christ, and how did you get in Christ? You see, Christianity teaches this erroneous doctrine, completely erroneous doctrine of getting into Christ sometime after his resurrection. There is nobody in Christ that was not in him when he died. He pulled all of humanity into himself, according to Ephesians. If you didn't die with him, you're not raised with him. Paul said, if we suffer with him, we will live with him. And if you didn't suffer with him, if you didn't go into the grave with him, there is no way that you're going to be alive in him whatsoever. We went through all that about seed in the last sessions that we've been into. All right, I'm having to turn into a magician here, so hold on. All right, so now in Galatians chapter 4, now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord over all. But is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. You see, the Father had an appointed time. Time means something to God, and this was all set up and done in a very specific time frame, and was prophesied to be done within a certain frame of time. Even so, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world, or just the rules of the world. We were in bondage under the rules. But when the fullness of time was come, now I want you to get that. It doesn't say when the fullness of time will come. It says when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Now, this issue that has become so distorted about the end of time, the 70th week of Daniel, all of these things. The fullness of time really does mean the completion. Time was, it doesn't say the fullness of an event, it literally says the fullness of time. So time was fulfilled itself. I mean, this is an amazing thing that has happened to this planet, and we have not ever engaged into the fullness of time, and the fullness of time has already come. And we were redeemed out from under the law. You see, Christ came in under the law to bring us out from under the law. That's why you should not be under the law whatsoever, is because that Christ really did was born of a woman, and it says was brought into this earth under the law to bring us out from under the law. And now people are completely in bondage under the law around the world. If you've got to do something to be something, you're under the law. That's what the law was prescribing and ascribing, and that's what the law was doing. But we're not in that situation. You're not under the law anymore. And the fullness of time was, can I emphasize that again? But when the fullness of time was come. But when the fullness of time was come. That's the issue. But when the fullness of time was come, now when was the fullness of time? God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. So, you see, we were redeemed at the fullness of time. We're not being redeemed on a daily basis. We were redeemed at once, 2,000 years ago, a powerful redemption that took place for us. Now, as there's a whole lot more here that we'll get into, but I want you to understand that the fullness of time means the absolute completion of time. Time served its purpose. Time now serves a wonderful purpose. It helps you get up to go to work on time. It helps us to relate to each other as to when we're going to show up or not show up. Helps us sleep. It does a whole lot of things. But you got to understand, time had an accomplishment to do, and it has done it. And we need to acknowledge this accomplishment of time. And when it says the fullness of time, the term fullness means completion of time. And the word time, just in case this just like, well, maybe it's some vague term. But you see, the Greek word here is chronos. And that's where we get our English word chronology from. Now, when you're doing something in a chronology, you are doing it very specifically, one thing right after the other, and it's going to happen this way, and this is the chronology of an event. When you go into a courtroom, they will want to put down a chronology of what happened, and so that we can understand the crime or the event that took place. Here's what happened. And chronology is very important. And if you've got the fullness of chronology, if you've got the fullness of a chronological data, and that's what prophecy was. Prophecy was a chronological data that was foretold what was going to happen before it happened. That's a pretty good trick to pull off, isn't it? Is to be able to tell what was going to happen before it ever happened. So Daniel chapter 9 goes into this also. And this is another thing about time that Christianity has put off into the future. And this is why they put it off into the future. It says, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the prophecy. That word seal up means to literally fulfill the vision and fulfill the prophecy. So to fulfill the prophecy and to anoint the most holy. You see, if you think that the 70th week of Daniel is not fulfilled, you also have to believe that the most holy has not been anointed. Now, that's just silly. So what happened at the fullness of time when Daniel's prophecy was fulfilled. You see, Christianity says the whole week, the 70th week of Daniel went on hold at the cross. No, the 70th week of Daniel was fulfilled at the cross, not went on hold. You see, it would not be a chronological issue. It wouldn't be a time. Why in the world would God, knowing that we are bound by time, communicate to us within time and then completely ignore time altogether when he says, oh, well, this is going to happen then and this is going to happen after that, and then completely ignore time altogether? But you see, the problem that the religious world has is that the fulfillment of the 70th week of Daniel was to finish transgression, the transgression to be finished. See, where there's no law, there is no transgression. And to make an end of sins. Sin's been put an end to. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. Iniquity was reconciled before God through the blood of Christ 2,000 years ago, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. And that is what we have. We have everlasting righteousness. I'm sorry, the camera's a little bouncy, but in finally getting this format straightened out, I wound up with the mount messed up, so maybe next week we'll be back in operation. And thanks to Daniel, we did get this going again. Then we have Matthew that has been just terribly messed up. Matthew, what an incredible prophecy. That was this discussion that happened between Jesus and the disciples. And look what they said. And Jesus went out and departed. Now, this is Matthew 24, departed from the temple. Now, Jesus had departed from the temple, and it says that, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto him, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be one stone left upon another that shall not be thrown down. Have you looked at the temple over there yet? That temple was destroyed. It happened just as Jesus said, that temple. But you see, the temple, according to other passages, the temple that Jesus was talking about was his own body. Because he said, destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll raise it up again. It's all about Jesus. It's not about temples and about religion. This was all about Christ, completely about Christ. And as they sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us when these things shall be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world. Man, when's the end of the world going to happen? Well, Jesus explained, well, it's not going to happen when you see hunger. It's not going to happen when you see famine. It's not going to happen when you see all these things. Don't be deceived, because that's not it. And yet we turn right around and teach these are signs of the end. Man, it's getting worse. It's been worse ever since the world's been going. It's been bad. It's been really bad. So the issue here is, what is the end of the world and the end of time, which is also mentioned in Matthew 24. And Jesus makes it very clear that the end of time is the cross. That was when time ended. That's when this chronology was fulfilled, was at the cross, when Jesus went up on the cross and drew the entire human race into himself. When he died, we died. When he raised, we raised. When we were raised into his righteousness, sin was done away with, law was done away with, righteousness was imputed, and time was fulfilled. Wow. So what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your time? That's what we need to ask ourselves. What am I doing with my time? Are you trying to win points with God to make the next life better? Well, you've got more points than you can handle, so you might as well just go out and give some of those points away. I mean, try to help somebody do something with life. Life's precious, folks, and we need to be living it. And not only just enjoying it, but we need to be living it. We need to be looking around and seeing what we can do to help life be a little bit better for others who may be a little bit less fortunate than ourselves. I can find those people all day long. And man, I tell you, I got into a really a pretty good hot mess by trying my best to reach out and try to help someone the other day. And but that doesn't make any difference. At least I know I made a connection, and I know that there was some degree of help that was offered during the situation that I wound up in. It was pretty harrowing, actually. I wound up with my truck stuck in the mud and had to call AAA to get out just because I was trying to help somebody. But anyway, it turned out to be an adventure, and one that I wouldn't trade for the world. What are you doing with time? Are you still waiting for the end of time? Doesn't Jesus get some credit about this term, end of time? Didn't Jesus finish all things? Did he fulfill all prophecy? Or did he just come and do a little bit and say, I'll be back later, guys. This is just too tough for me, or whatever. Jesus didn't quit on us, folks. He came to redeem the world, and he was successful. I hope that's good news for you. It's certainly good news for me. And again, I apologize for the fact that I had to hold the camera because it did not have the mount adjusted. I had it adjusted to where that it would fit the horizontal or the vertical instead of the horizontal. Now we got the camera fixed, and now the mount is got to be repaired too. I love you guys. Thank you for putting up with the unsteadiness of the video. We love you. We love you to pieces. Look forward to seeing you again next week.